Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, VSW Donna, with another episode of VSW. Tonight, we got what a lot of people have been telling me is the smartest man in pro wrestling. The one, the only, Jimmy Jr. Welcome.
Thank you for that introduction. I think a lot of people are wrong, but I'll take it.
They said you have like just the greatest psychology for this industry, for this sport, how to work a match, how to make people love it. They just said you're brilliant at it. And this is not by one person, this is by like many, many people.
Well, people are kind then.
But welcome aboard. I do thank you. Love the work you did. I'll start off the bat. I love the work you did as Hecate Hangman. That was brilliant. And a great character to that film.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun project, and I've been in the wrestling business for 25 years now, and anytime you can be a part of something that is just like a different project, a fun project that expands the canvas that we get to paint on in the professional wrestling business. Anytime you get to do that, it's a pleasure.
I have to say, and I always credit this to Luke. 22, 23, I got into almost a rut where everything was kind of the same. And if you're familiar with the indie scene, which I'm sure you are, nobody's really exclusive. So everybody, they're working their shows, and you start to see the same matches. You might even start to see the exact same things happening. Got a little dull. And then I came across this, very loud, it was maybe about a minute long, trailer for a film. I'm like, what's this? This looks fun. I checked out the film about an hour long. I just fell in love with it. It rekindled a passion for me wanting to do creative stuff within the wrestling realm again. Because I could just see it was just filled with that creativity. It had fun, it had excitement, but it also had the authenticity that, hey, this is good wrestling.
Yeah. Look, there are certainly trends in professional wrestling. There is, to some degree, a limitation on the medium. Right. At the end of the day, two guys are wrestling to be the best or fighting because they have a personal issue. The score is going to be settled in an 18 by 18 foot ring or a 20 by 20 foot ring, be that as it may. So yeah, sometimes there's a certain amount of stagnation that can happen. And when you're on television, when you're doing, wrestling television, there also can be certain limitations because you're answering to many different masters, right? And so Kill City Cup was interesting because, we had no masters. It was just a different interpretation, a different way to tell stories, just with a little bit of, some different tools to tell stories.
So definitely a different master than when you had to fight Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah. Different, and that was great too. And so there's,
a different story is being told.
Yeah, and a different way to tell stories, right? And again, there are certain trends in wrestling and certain things that reoccur. So I always enjoy something like Kill City Cup. I didn't even exactly know what it was going to be or look like until I saw the final product. Once I saw the final product, I was like, oh, there's some things I wish I would have done a little bit differently. And now that I see exactly what the vision is, so I hope we get another go around to do something else like this with Kill City Cup.
I heard rumor that you would, if such an opportunity arises, you'd have more in a hand rolling kind of directing and direction of maybe how certain stories go, or even background or character work, what goes on with Queen Gia, etc.
Yeah, look, Luke and I have talked about me having a hand in some more of that. My performing days are mostly behind me by and large, although I do appear here and there when I'm so inclined. But for the last 9 years, I've been mainly working behind the scenes in professional wrestling television. So that seems to be where my aptitude is most useful, generally speaking. So if working with with Luke on creating another Kill City Cup installment. That sounds fun and exciting, and that's yeah. So it's something I would definitely be interested in.
Now, you said now, you're taking that direction and kind of that behind the scenes kind of look into the wrestling world, but that's not how you started. You said about 25 years ago or so. That puts it around 23, so what, like the end of the 90s?
1999, yeah.
99. Okay, so wrestling was in kind of a wild state of period. WWE, the Attitude Era was still there. You had wild shows on ECW, things. I don't know if the merge yet had happened, but it was a different time in wrestling than it definitely is today. Locker rooms were different to, what even matches look like. How was it coming in the industry then?
Yeah, it was way different. And I was young. I was 15 years old. And I started hanging around independent wrestling at 14 years old, just sort of trying to get my foot in the door any way I could. I would bring my video camera to the shows and record them, and I would make websites for wrestlers, and I would play music, run the music and things like that. Yeah, 1999 was a different time. Wrestling was hot, and just putting professional wrestling on the marquee in that time period, people showed up because it was such a mainstream thing. Yeah, and it has changed, but we're in a different we're in a completely different sort of wrestling boom, and it is to a degree, especially independent wrestling. In the late 90s, early 2000s, independent wrestling would draw as sort of like a top down measure, like because WWF and WCW and ECW were hot, that excitement just sort of trickled down. It's like, oh, because pro
Yeah,
wrestling.
I mean, I remember indie wrestling as a kid. The police actually used to give me free tickets if I donated. My dad donated enough money. I'd go to the show. There would be about 10 unknown people, but then they would haul in the Honky Tonk Man, Warlord, some other people that we know, and those were the names and those were the people, and it was kind of like, okay, where now if you fast forward to the indie scene, you don't need any of those WWE stars. These guys are the stars. They tell the story. They have their own roles. It's wonderful to see that.
Right. It's much more in the last handful of years. It's been much more of like a bottom up excitement. This is starting with, I think, some of the big, indie wrestling icons, people like, whatever in the Ring of Honor area, the Colt Cabanas and the CM Punks, and the really the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. I think I would peg as the talents that particularly heated up the independents. And of course, their hotness, those acts are what helped create, AEW now. And that's basically how hot uh, independent wrestling and those guys were, that it started to create the demand for a completely alternative mainstream product.
Oh, I remember. I mean, I remember when they did All In, and it was just such this, like, oh my God, these indie guys are funding their own show. This is from themselves. They're not behind anybody. There's no Vince McMahon here. These are wrestlers for the wrestlers, and they're not just, on the, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Right now, at that point, they were the hottest thing at the start. They had T-shirts all over Hot Topic. And then, they turned into AEW and it formed that way. And I always look at AEW as it's more than just an alternative. Because an alternative to me is like almost like Ring of Honor or New Japan or something. I feel like AEW went even a different direction. It's kept some of these people's indie vibe, but it's just amplified or made it better, made it more professional, but it hasn't erased what they were or who they were going in.
Right. Yeah, AEW in some real sense is the manifestation of the demand and of just sort of the hotness of that independent wrestling was a handful of years ago. And of course you have to give credit to guys like Cody Rhodes as well, and Chris Jericho, John Moxley. But the climate of the business was really ready for a true, a true mainstream alternative to WWE.
But now you work for WWE, you worked at the top. How was working for Vince? How was like, going about that industry? Because it is the top. For many people, it's, the creme de la creme of wrestling. This is where I want to be. They watch it as a kid. That's my dream spot. There's nothing else that matters. How was it working there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that was no different for me, and it's an experience I'm extremely grateful for. I started working there when I was 31, and I worked there for 2.5 years. It was a real dream come true, and it was a life-changing experience in so many ways. I loved working for WWE. I had difficulty working for Vince at that time in my life, and just for how he was and just how I was. And that's not even to necessarily point fingers or anything. It's just say um, that was a challenge for me. That I was.
Did you have interaction with him?
Mhm. Yeah. I worked. Look, I wasn't in the belly of the beast, but in the creative job, you're close enough to the belly of the beast, where Vince McMahon is someone that you interact with on a regular basis. And I was always a little, maybe too eccentric for him, to the degree that I am eccentric. Like, my particular idiosyncrasies, he just didn't seem to quite. It wasn't a nice match, and just at that point in my life, I wasn't really prepared or ready um, to be in that sort of environment. To some degree. To some degree, I was. Like I said, I really enjoyed working for WWE in a lot of ways, and I was good at my job. But the time I spent there, the 2.5 years, was the right amount of time.
What would you say would be the most memorable event that happened while you were there that you were just like, wow, this is operating. This is really starstruck me.
Oh, I mean, the obviously the highlight of my time there personally was working with Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho on their story in late 2016, early 2017. That was a real great collaboration, and it was Chris and Kevin had such great chemistry, and once we really found that voice and what that dynamic was, it was a ton of fun. It was a really fulfilling time, personally, creatively, for me. Yeah, that was for sure the highlight of it.
And I heard Chris is another one that really understands kind of the psychology of pro wrestling, is really kind of into that more so. He understands how to put on a good match and how to do a good thing. So it must have
Yeah,
been quite the collab there with everybody's minds together.
Chris is great, and he doesn't suffer fools. It took a little bit of time for him to trust me, right? Because even though I had been in the wrestling business for whatever 16, 17 years before that, that didn't mean anything to someone like him until I showed that what I can bring to the table is beneficial for him. So I had to earn his respect. I had to earn his trust, and rightfully so. It's
So you
like,
got to almost like repay your dues basically for just personally him, just to say, hey, I belong.
yeah, to a degree, again, and rightfully so. Chris didn't get to where he is and become, the tour de force that he is, and one of the greatest of all time, by surrounding himself and with people that weren't of value, and trusting people that didn't earn his trust. So it was it was a challenge at first, but I learned a lot working from Chris, both wrestling wise, and even just like success wise. Just one of the things I learned from Chris was just kind of like, there was this. So we had just started doing the list of Jericho, and he wanted like as a clipboard, but we hadn't made like the main. We hadn't gotten like the main like look of it done yet, and he wanted the clipboard like with his name on it, and like I like just like couldn't get it done or didn't feel like I could got it done. And finally, like I'm like, hey man, I can't get the name on the clipboard right. And finally, just like grab the clipboard and he goes like he puts his name on it or whatever. And he goes, hey, like I kind of I don't want to know why it can't be done. Like I want to know how we can do it, which is a bit of a Vinceism too. That's a to go, hey, it's not about going, yeah, I just well, this person's busy and I can't get it done because of this. It's like, how are we going to get it done? It's like, are you a part of the team that's going to get this done, that's going to make this the best thing possible, or are you not? Are you the guy that's going to make excuses and going, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that? And I really, in that moment, sort of learned to get on board with Chris and going, great, that's what this is. This is like, let's get this shit done no matter what.
So like Yoda, do or do not. There is no try. There's no in between point.
Correct. There is no try.
I mean, that's a good attitude. There really isn't. I mean, either you are going to do it or you're going to fail. And I mean, sometimes you are going to fail, and that's fine too. And with those failures comes a lesson and what to do better in the next time. But if you don't give it your all, you're never going to know that you're not going to fail either.
Yeah, it's all about going for it. And then I noticed that in other people. I noticed the sort of people that were like, oh, I don't know if we can get it done because of this. Oh, we don't have much time to get it done. We don't have. It's like that's not what we're doing. It's get it done to the best of our abilities with what we have. That's what we're doing. We're not doing anything other than that.
Show must go on. I mean, that's what it is. So you ended up getting out of WWE and did you go right over to AEW or did you take some like time in between?
No, so I worked for Impact Wrestling then for 5.5 years. So
Okay.
I got fired from WWE in October of 2017, and then I
What did
started.
they actually fight?
I got fired for taking that picture with the Young Bucks and posting it on Instagram. That's
Just so rivalry bullshit, basically.
Yeah. Look, it wasn't professional of me. I don't.
I mean, yes, it's rivalry, but I mean, unprofessional, yes, I guess, because they're considered whatever. But I mean, they figure you don't have your own life. I mean, kayfabe is the days of kayfabe are far and gone.
I don't particularly defend my actions and going, oh, it was BS. Like they had every reason to like when I posted it, I knew people wouldn't be necessarily happy. I didn't think I was going to get fired, but when I did, that was fine too. I take all the ownership of my actions in that. So there's no part of me that goes, oh, that was unreasonable for them to. There's no part of me that
No,
feels.
would you get fired now if you took a picture with the WWE star?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Yeah. But
It's two different beasts. I know, but yeah. So you did. So then you said you went into Impact, which
right.
is what is it?
So yeah, so a few weeks later, they had their Bound for Glory card, which is their big show every year. It was in Ottawa, Ontario, and Scott D'Amore had just taken over, sort of running the company. And I've known Scott since I was like 16 years old, so it was sort of fortuitous timing, synchronistic, serendipitous timing. So Scott called me. We said, "Hey, let's see if this is a fit," and it was a good fit. It was a time in that company where they were sort of scaling back things, and they needed someone who wore a lot of hats, and I was somebody that wore a lot of hats and had different experiences in different aspects of wrestling. So it was a very good fit from day one. So I was there for 5.5 years.
Was it a big difference from working in that locker room and with those people than working from where you came from? Was it
Yeah,
like a big cultural difference?
yeah, there were differences. Obviously, at that point, particularly because the company was scaling back so much. I mean, look, in 2017, leading up to that, the budget was really out of control, and it needed to be. They needed a budget and to scale back in order to survive, to have a sustainable product. And so I was fine working within those boundaries. So look, in WWE, you had all the resources in the world to execute a vision. And at that point, at least at Impact, as we're scaling back, you didn't have all the resources in the world, but to some end, that had to make you more resourceful, right? You go, okay, so we have a little more confinement here. How do we make the best thing possible without having an infinite amount of resources? And so, yeah, it was different to that end. And it was also, look, it was different. Just Vince McMahon micromanaged a lot. And I came to Impact, and Scott trusted me, and he trusted me to succeed or to fail, but to just, in my mind, you want to surround yourself with people you trust, and you give them a certain framework, a certain ground to stand on, framework to work within, and then you allow them to do what they're good. And I thought Scott did very well at that. And at that point in my life, it was a real breath of fresh air to have some of that creative freedom, both on screen and behind the scenes. I didn't have to worry about my tie and my suit and how I presented myself, and sort of the more Vince wanted you to look all proper and sort of prop up this very like corporate facade, and I didn't really vibe with that. That wasn't where I was at that point in my life. I like to sort of just act like myself and be myself, to allow the creative juices to go, and not worry about, oh my gosh, am I going to get in trouble about the color of my tie, instead of concerning myself with what this segment and what this television show looks like.
No, and I mean that kind of, I can see, those things kind of halter people's creativity when you do have to worry about, X, Y, and Z, which aren't really, like you said, that important compared to, the real stuff that's going on. What's he talking about? Is that good? What's the segment? These are all taking away time from working on that.
Well, to be fair, to Vince, it was important, and it was his show, and he was allowed to do that. Again, none of anything I'm saying should be interpreted that I'm like pointing fingers.
No, and I think that's what makes sports entertainment. That it's not your typical wrestling, because there is that sense of very professional level. Not that other brands aren't professional, but there is also that laid back vibe. Tony Khan is very professional, but there's also a very laid back vibe. And same thing with some other owners. With Vince, there was never really that laid back vibe. It's like, yo, he's a CEO. And he will always be that CEO. The only time I've seen him laid back maybe is when he was younger on the mic. That was it. Even growing up in the Attitude Era, you would see him in his matches with Stone Cold. You could still be like, man, he's still in charge. This isn't, he's running this match.
Yeah, everybody has their different styles, and some people I've worked with and worked for, it was a better fit than others.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling is very subjective in a lot of ways, and what works for somebody might not work for the next person. Like you said, you're very eccentric. You like to do more other things in wrestling that maybe doesn't fit their criteria of what should be done. And like I said, it's not that it's bad or good, it's different. And every brand of wrestling has its different style. Even, on the indie scene, while there is that, it does get synonymous, they do also bring their individual own kind of style. So Impact was, like you said, a very good time there, and being able to be trusted, it kind of gave you just a little bit of sense of, well, I'm not being watched 24/7 on what you do.
Right. Yeah. There's a balance there. Again, you can't give someone no ground to stand on or no framework, right? You have to give them a certain amount of structure. But too much of that creates this confinement, creates a sort of tyrannical feeling there. Too little of it is just chaos and everything's a whirlwind. And I thought Impact had a you know, and the managerial style, let's say, there was a pretty good balance.
And what made you leave there?
I had been there for 5.5 years, and it just felt like at that point, in the position I was in, with the just with everything in totality, it just felt like it was time for me. And there's not a whole lot more than that, other than it was like, hey, I felt like I had done what I could do for the company in that role. And I yeah, that's about it. That's roughly it. There's
So
certainly,
everything was pretty like copacetic good terms. It's like you said, you reach your basically your top point that you could reach there, and it's time to do something else.
and again, as life tends to work, as I was um, ready to do something else, is when Brian Danielson called me about coming in on the AEW team. So it all worked out well.
And how has that been? And like I said, Tony is just even a different boss, totally different than Vince was. But he's still a boss. He's still a CEO. He's still a respectable person. He's still a businessman. How's it working under Tony?
Yeah, I've enjoyed myself working there. You're right. It definitely is it's a different dynamic. It's a different product, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work in this new environment with a lot of the people I've worked with in the past. And Tony certainly has. I've been very impressed by a lot of different things about him. He's an extremely creative guy. He's actually prolifically creative. Like I'm not a prolifically creative guy, right? I have a certain amount of creativity, but I'm not the guy ever, and I've never been the guy that goes, "What about this? Well, what about this? What about this?" Where the ideas just come left and right. And Tony,
Innovation never ends. Yeah.
yeah, Tony does have that. So it's been cool, and I feel like I'm just starting to get some of my flow there. It takes a little bit of time to um, dance with the dynamic of wherever you're at, and I'm really enjoying myself at this point.
Was it good seeing Don Jericho again?
Yeah, look, it's good seeing so many people again, and yeah, Chris is great. It's great to um, be back in there with him, and all these other people that over 25 years I've worked with most of these guys. So it was nice my first day there to
It's
see.
good to see a familiar face and be like, hey, somebody knows me. I know them. It'll be okay. And it's hard walking into prison. You don't know anybody. It's like, and
Yeah,
everybody's kind of looking at you. And how did Luke get a hold of you? Have you known Luke a long time?
yeah, I've known Luke. Geez, I mean, I don't know, 10, 12. Geez, I don't even know when Luke and I first met. He used to book me on on events that he ran up in Maine. This is
Yeah,
probably
you
it
did
does
a match with like Mason X, didn't you?
maybe. I don't know who I've done matches with. I've had a lot of them. Yeah, so I started working for him in Maine maybe about a dozen years ago or so, and I love Luke, man. He's a great guy, and whenever we're in the same area, we meet up, and I think it's cool that he has the excitement and drive to sort of create something. That's
Talk
always
about prolific ideas. He's another one that can just spit them out like boom, 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 boom.
yeah. I
Um,
like it a lot, and look, I appreciate anybody that goes for it, that just creates and expresses themselves, um, how they feel fit. It's very easy to sort of stand on the sidelines in life, because going in the arena can be a scary thing. Putting yourself in front of everybody, showing yourself, vulnerability. I find the process of creation to be vulnerable, and I think it is. And so I really appreciate anybody that goes, yeah, this is what I'm doing, and that's it. So Luke's one of those guys.
I see. Well, I mean, like I said, 2 days I heard that it was like 2 wild days because like people were coming and going, but not a lot of people knew what was actually going on. Like Zipmunk was like last minute character. He was gonna be somebody totally different. Like people didn't even like I talked to Natalia, she didn't even know she was gonna win until like maybe like before. Nobody really knew what kind of direction it was going until it was kind of that final product.
Yeah, like again, that's I didn't understand the full vision until I saw the final product. I was like, oh, here's what it is. Oh, there's a lot to do here. But yeah, look, there has to be fluidity in wrestling and really in anything. So it's not uncommon that there's last minute changes and last minute altercations because that is look, man, when you're dancing with the cosmos, you got to go with the flow.
Definitely, definitely. And I mean, that was just like I said, something about it. I mean, you got to see again familiar faces there. You have Brian Cage in there. You got some NWA guys and girls in there. You have such, massive albums. You get so many great people in there. That he brought together to bring his vision together. I went to the panel he did up in Maine and it kind of went through the process. And it showed like a comic book he did many, many years ago, just a picture from of it. And it had like all these wrestlers in it. And the same person, there's one person that stayed the same, and that was Brian Cage. He kind of stayed consistent throughout. He always wanted to know, like, he wanted Brian Cage in this because he looks like the video game character. It was great seeing that kind of evolution from like, thought to pen to a movie.
Yeah, look, that is the payoff, that is the reward of creation and seeing your vision all the way through from the mind to manifestation. So I think Luke created something with the team that he should be proud of.
Most definitely, most definitely. And besides, the AEW, I heard that you're also rereading Harry Potter,
Yeah,
starting back. Which one are you on now?
six, the half blood prince.
You got through basically, yeah. I haven't read the books in a very long time. Movies I'll watch every other Christmas, so when they come on. But they're nothing like the books, I'll be honest. The books were better.
yeah. Yeah, five drags a little bit. Like four and five are like my least favorite. I mean, they're still great, but six, like I think I started it 2 days ago and I'm almost done with it. Cause like, this is so good. Yeah, very very good stuff. It's nice to have some light reading.
Are you a big fan of that genre, or is that just something you just happen to like?
Uh, Fantasy in general is a fun, uh, you know, fantasy, magic, all that sort of stuff. Is fun and yeah.
Kind of gets you out of that reality. And yeah, definitely I can see. I mean, I'm a big kind of like sci-fi kind of guy and horror fan, but a lot of that like magic stuff, wizardry. My kid actually dragged me to went to a card shop today for like first time like 20 years. I started playing Magic the Gathering again. Talk about wizards and going back. But yeah, I mean, it's all good stuff. Where do you see yourself in like 4 to 5 years in this industry? What do you see yourself doing?
Oh, that's a difficult question, man. It's like no one knows what the landscape of professional wrestling is going to be, or what's going to happen tomorrow necessarily. Like I said, man, I'm enjoying my time at AEW. I think we're getting in a good flow as far as the television goes too. I've been proud of television, some of the pay-per-views we've been putting on, and I think that's going to continue. So I'm grateful to be a part of the team at this point.
When you got over there, did it really feel like a reunited Monday Night War?
Oh, I don't see things in those terms necessarily. Look, competition is healthy, right? It is healthy to have someone else you're racing against that pushes you. Competition and competition and cooperation actually which seems counterintuitive, but these are both things that create flourishing. So I think within AEW, there is a pride in the product, and I don't think that pride is necessarily contingent on what WWE is or isn't doing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's there, and like you say, without competition, there is really little room to grow. You need to kind of see what's out there to kind of say, "Oh, I got to do better," and that's how people kind of, reach the next line, and then the next person goes, and it goes on. Um, but the fans made it literally like it was WCW or it's WWF, and Tony was undermining everything Vince was doing, and Vince was doing the same, and the wrestlers were just, hating on each other, and people were undermining. Now, vice versa, when you were in WWE, was there like, obviously you got fired for Young Bucks. Was there like rumors and stuff like, hey, we gotta like kind of stop the competition?
Not particularly. I mean, look, this is before AEW was around, so there wasn't really another company. No offense to Ring of Honor or TNA at their Impact Wrestling at the time, but it just wasn't in the same stratosphere as.
That's what I say. Like, I mean, those are great platforms, but there was no platform for viewers to watch like AEW. There was no weekly show to tune into easily accessible without having to pay for a subscription or stay up at weird hours of the night or do certain things.
Right.
AEW brought that mainstream as a second to us.
Sure, and with TNT and TBS, I mean these are two huge distribution platforms. So I mean this is the AEW is the first time since WCW really that there's seriously been someone sort of dancing with WWE a little bit.
Let me ask you, and like I said, a lot of people have said you've been pretty brilliant in this. If Tony was to hand you the keys for a day and be like, "Yo, run this. You can do whatever you want for the day. Run my product, make it good." What would you do?
Oh, jeez, man, that's such a.
Is there anything that? Oh, put it this way: is there anything that's really irking you right now that you'd be like, "I wish I could just get involved." And you don't have to get into too. You can be vague. I understand. It's
No. Look, there's AEW is like it's Tony's show, right? In the same way, it's like whoever's in charge, that's like their show. I'm not looking to, nor have I ever really looked to like impose my preferences per se on someone else's property, if that makes sense.
No, it does. You're kind of there to compliment it rather than to kind of make your stamp.
Right. I'm there to facilitate someone else's vision and collaborate too. It's not like Tony's a tyrant by any means. So yeah, look, it's not my show to go, oh, this is what I would do, and this is like I don't.
So you don't even think in those terms. I know some people will be like,
right.
I wish I could change. You don't even get into that realm. You kind of just stay in your role of what you're doing.
Correct. Yes. Maybe when I first worked for WWE, I sort of had some of that mentality to go like, oh, kind of like, well, let's just do what we think is best. And then pretty soon it's like, well, that's not what this is. You're not doing your job if you're, yeah. So I'm happy to facilitate and to bring what I bring to the table to, to the team.
That's great, though. And I mean, honestly, that's a great mentality. I think it's true when they say you're nicer than Mick Foley. Mick is nice, but you might be nicer. You might be a really, truly nice guy. Is he what really inspired you to get into wrestling, Mick?
Mick Foley, yeah. Mick, I mean, he inspired so many people, right? When I was
in different ways too, like depending on where you caught him and what you caught him doing.
Yeah, look, when he did his sit down interviews with Jim Ross and like spring or whatever summer of '97, and he's talking about jumping off his garage and eating bugs, and I'm like, that's my guy. That's like me. That's like he was just my guy. Yeah, and throughout the years, of course the getting thrown off the cage, the Hell in a Cell, and his promos. I love just promos. I loved he was my hero when I was 14, and I was so grateful to be able to work with him, and get to know Mick to some degree throughout my career. We had Mick in this is in 2016 or 2017. I think he was like the commissioner or GM of Raw, and we were doing a promo. It was in Detroit, and he had to make a decision by the end of the night. Which member of Raw he was going to fire. And in the end, he says he wants to fire Stephanie McMahon. And Mick cuts this promo, and I'm watching this at whatever 32, 33 years old, like a kid. Like I'm watching this, like fuck, man, I love this guy. If that was the first time I had seen him, he still would have been my guy. I'd been like, yes, this guy, just the way he talks. Mick brings so much of himself, so much of his soul into what he does, and it just really connects with me. It's like that's my stuff. Like, that's the kind. If you want to know like the kind of thing that I like, the kind of thing that like yes, it's like a good Mick Foley.
Well, I can see a lot of like Cactus Jack and Hecate Hangman, honestly.
Thanks. Well, look, I think Mick inspired a lot of people.
And like I said, I caught him around in different eras. Like I said, I saw him in WCW as that. I saw him as Mankind working that. I was a really big fan when he was doing all three, with the Dude Love and all that, stuff. That was a lot of fun. Then he became even more serious. He did like a corporate role. He's been just a man. He truly is a man of many masks, and he just plays each one so good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to learn from him in this industry. I was lucky enough to meet him a couple of years ago. He was doing a signing at a GCW show, and I got to kind of talk to him for a little bit. He's, like I said, a very nice person. But he has like so much wisdom too, and he's been around. And he's had so much. He's seen it all from those early days of when nobody did care if you got hit with the chair too. Hey, we're not doing that anymore, and so much in between. He's seen all the eras. And that's kind of how you do learn. You do learn through that progression. Like I said, when you came into what you are right now, it's totally different. It's not the same arena when you fought Eddie. The fans aren't the same fans. The vibe isn't the same vibe. It's totally different.
Well, life to some degree is underlined by the necessity for adaptation, right? I mean, that's just how things are. We are, if you take an evolutionary framework for things, that's all that we are made to do. We have become specifically tuned to reality in order to adapt to the best of our abilities. So,
and then that adaptation is the progression, and that progression is, it's how people grow and industries grow, businesses grow. I mean, if you look at it, you get a lot of fans. Oh, Attitude was the highlight. Maybe on some level, yes. Okay, you had huge numbers. People were into it. Wrestling was very mainstream. Everybody was into Stone Cold. Everybody was into DX. Yes, but in other levels, the industry was very behind. The women's division was nowhere what it is today, not even close. What is happening, across the industry for women has been great. Seeing people finally, some of them have titles, making them part of the show rather than just side show. When I grew up, we were lucky to see Alondra Blaze fight once or twice in a year. I don't remember many matches, but now, you have women's a part of the show. On the indie scene, we get great intergender matches. Something that's not really mainstream yet, but on the indie scene, when done right, I'm a big fan. I think it works. It looks good. And there's a lot of people that can do it very well. One, Chris Statlander, she's a great intergender wrestler.
Yeah, look, yeah, you're correct. With adaptation comes evolution and comes growth, and there are things, the women's wrestling in particularly. I mean, over the last, 20 years, it turns out that women, when presented not as just special sideshow attractions, but when presented as competing athletes and presented giving the presentation as athletic stars, there's a market for that, and they've shown that they can draw money and make money and become large assets to the company in a far different way than during the Attitude Era. So yeah, man, things constantly evolve, and yeah, I think yeah.
But I think overall wrestling right now is in a good spot. It has a happy medium. I mean, I know people aren't happy with the whole Cody thing. I get that, but you know what? To be honest with you, they're never going to be happy no matter what happens. For years they wanted The Rock, now they don't want him. Then they want him. You're not going to please everybody. But wrestling in general, I feel, is in a good spot. Indie scene is thriving. People are moving up more so than ever and getting to where they want to go and getting seen. People are getting overseas. We here in the Northeast, we got a huge turnover rate of people getting, to AEW and beyond. A lot of people get, MLW. Some people are going to Germany. We got people in Ring of Honor. It's great out here. Like I said, some days we see them in the VFW, and 3 weeks later, there they are on TV.
Yeah, so certainly I'll say this. There's a few things. One, the in-ring work from the top performers in this business is as good as it's ever been, I would say. And opportunities for performers, for wrestlers is, I mean, it's just, boy, it's huge. I mean, there's so much opportunity, so many jobs for wrestlers, and it's so different than it was 20 years ago. Once WWE sort of put ECW and WCW out of business, or whatever, ECW and WCW went out of business. There was such a large gap between sort of top money in this business being on the top of the business and the independents, and that's changed so much. Where these mainstream companies like AEW and WWE have their eyes set on performers on the independent level, guys that are successful, guys that have made a name for themselves and travel the world and have honed their crafts. And yeah, there's so much opportunity. It's such a good time to be a wrestler.
I agree, and there is a lot of difference. Where there is, when I had this idea I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I loved pro wrestling since I saw probably King Kong Bundy and Hogan go at it on occasion. Little kid, growing older, I really wanted to get into it. ECW drop, me and my friends were Bob Wire in it in the backyard. Bloodshed. We're gonna go to school for this thing. Kid looks it up. It's Killer Kowalski School. This is great, notable name. Let's go. We're all ready to go. I'm only 5'8". They're like, no, that's not happening. That's not for you. I'm like, okay. And they sent me away. And going now it's more inclusive. There's roles for littler people, the smaller people. There's roles for different size people. Back then, it was very big men oriented. They wanted you muscular, big, over 6 feet, or they weren't even looking at you.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's changed throughout the years too. I mean, I think the average size of the professional wrestler has gone down. Really the cruiserweights in WCW probably were one of the at least in the mainstream in the United States changeovers to see that smaller performers be an asset to a company, at least on a certain level. And over the years, performers that are undersized have been mainstream draws. So yeah, I think things were constantly changing.
We can't wait to see what's going to change more, because like I said, it is always evolving, and sometimes, a lot of times I feel it's for the better. I mean, a lot of things have moved forward, like you said. Any plans? I heard your birthday's coming up. Any special plans? Anything good going on?
Just probably hang out by myself and contemplate the decisions I've made in my life.
I just saw Brian Cage throw like this huge 40th birthday party, like all sorts of things going on. No, not.
Mine will be something like that. A party for one and a lot of tears.
Well, those are valuable now. You can sell those as merch.
Vials of Jimmy Jacobs tears.
They'll sell them, and if they don't sell them here, they'll definitely sell them in Kill City. They'll sell pints of blood out there. They don't care. But honestly, we really can't wait to see where that goes to. It's great work what we see on TV that you've been producing and have done. And like I said, we can't wait to see what goes on with Kill City. I follow Luke kind of religiously of what's going on with that because I really am interested and invested in it. I really want to know the storylines. What's going to happen with Nikita? I'm going to ask you one more question. I've been asking everybody. If it wasn't Kate Hangman, who was your favorite character that was in that tournament?
But that Zipper Monk had a cool outfit, didn't he? I would have to look at the characters. Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, Zip Monk, Mason X.
The Zip Monk was fun. Brian Cage was great. Yeah,
he was really realistic as that Terminator / Kano character. I'm a big fan of Leon myself and his little entourage, with April Hunter coming out and that was good. So much great stuff went into that. Like I said, I can't really wait to see more. It was a perfect length to be satisfying, but yet want a lot more.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And again, great job on TV. We really like it.
Great. Thank you, man.
And thank you everybody at home. Actually, let me ask you one more thing because I'll edit it back in. We have one more final question that I like to really ask everybody besides who their favorite Kill City Cup person is. And that is, how can people find you across social media?
I'm not currently on social media. So I've got a website.
Awesome. How do you do it? How did you get out of it?
You go to jimmyjacobs.com. There's a website there that's never updated, but you can find what you need as far as contacting me or buying.
How did you break the chains of social media though? That's great. You're free.
Wow.
It's a double-edged sword. Yes, it can bring in money if you're smart at it, but my God, it can suck the life out of you too. So that's refreshing to hear someone who's not on social. I love it.
Thanks.
Thank you again, Jimmy. Happy early birthday. And thank you everybody at home for tuning in. This has been a great episode. If you haven't already, check out Kill City Cup. It's free. It's on YouTube. And also, check out AEW. It's like the best wrestling out there right now.
The following is brought to you by Kill. Streaming now on YouTube. Scan the QR code to watch for free.
Welcome to the Kill City Cup.